Are you a cookie lover like myself, but anymore just if you eat one? Let alone look at one, gain 5 pounds? Let me show you a trick for some fake ones. Okay, so we're going to make them with salt dough. So my recipe that's a no-fail, it's 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of salt, and 1 cup of warm water. What I'm going to do is take my spoon and just stir my dry ingredients. And before I add my water, I added 3 tea bags to it to make the dough a darker shade. It helps with making fake baked cookies. And I add some cinnamon just because I can. And I love cinnamon. So, we're really going to get our fingers in here and we're going to work it. It took me 8 minutes total to do this whole process. And you're just going to basically knead it like you would if you were kneading a dough. You're going to take and you're going to fold and all that fun stuff as if it was you were doing some real baking. Which kind of, I guess technically you are, but you're not. You'll know you're good when it's not sticking to your fingers anymore. And here I'm saving my tea bags. I'm emptying out the tea grounds. I'm going to set those off to the side. And I'm saving the bags for a craft. The tea is great for plants. So what I did was I put my salt dough in this airtight container while I cleaned up my mess. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to kind of roll it out here, and I'm going to just take and tear apart chunks approximately the same size. And I like to work it in my hands, as you can see there, before I roll them into balls. It saves on, it doesn't crack as much, even though we want it to crack, we just don't want it to fall apart. So just take and work it in your hands, and then roll it into a ball. And once you get them all rolled out into little balls here, we're going to take and we're going to smash them down with our palms. See how realistic already it looks? Now, for one cookie I want to make, I want to do a chocolate chunk. So these are made from air dry clay. I'll show you in the next clip how I made them. But I get the most realistic effect if I just take them and work them into my salt dough a little at a time. You just kind of take the dough, make a little dip in it, and smush in some chocolate chips and add as you go. I found this technique to definitely make them the most realistic as possible, because they give the little lumps and stuff as you would with a real chocolate chip cookie. So I'm going to make a few more plain cookies here, and then I'm going to show you how to make cinnamon rolls. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. So here I just take a chunk, 2 chunks, and I kind of smash them together in between my fingers to make that tight log. And I'm going to do it to both of them. And when I pat them down, and it's easier if you leave one end a little wider than the other, and you can roll it straight how I just did. Or, like this next one, you can roll at a diagonal. Like that. And I like to smush them down a little on the top. I take and smash them down easy. So now, we're going to bake these. We are not going to bake the chocolate chip cookie ones because they have air dry clay, and that is not bakeable. So here is how I made my chocolate chip cookies. I saved my scrap pieces of air dry clay, and all I did was I took and cut them up into little chunk size pieces. It's always nice to save scrap pieces of air dry clay. And I just cut them from what I thought a chocolate chunk size would be. And here I'm just going in with some of my burnt umber that I was out of. So that was kind of hard. I had to go in with black, and then I found a little bit of burnt umber I had in my piping bag. But I'm just going to take them in my little canister lid here and get them all painted up. It's an easier way to paint. And I'm going to add a little Mod Podge just so they're sealed. And then what I do is I take them out of this container, I pick them apart, and I let them dry overnight. You can get real creative too and make raisin cookies like this with just change the color of paint, and you can leave some of them stuck together and they look just like a raisin. And now I'm going to show you how you can do the fake M&Ms. This is with the Dollar Tree modeling dough. I had previously made the M&Ms I use with foam clay, but I did the same exact technique I'm about to show you here with this modeling dough. Just take the colors that you want. You're going to roll them out, but first you kind of want to condition it in your hand so it doesn't crack. And it's crazy because each color of this modeling dough was different. And some of it you really had to work in your hands. And some of it you didn't. Like the blue was super easy. But some of the other colors you really had to work it in your hands. So once you get them rolled out, all I do, I'm going to show you here. In 1 second. Come on, get that rolled. I take and I pull pieces apart. And I just try to make them as even as possible when I pull them apart. And I take the chunk, I roll it in my hand, and I just put my finger down once on it to flatten it out. That way it still has that thickness. You don't want to completely flatten it out. And that is it. Do that for every single color you want. Let them, dry good overnight, and you can come back to them the next day.
2,000 years later.
Okay, here's my cookies after baking them. So now what I'm going to do, after you bake them and they're dry, and remember the chocolate chip you want to air dry because they got air dry clay in them. So I like to go in with just the classic caramel color here and dry brush them. And don't worry if you get some on these chocolate chunks, because you can always go over with your burnt umber color and color over them, which I do. And you'll see a cool little trick too that I do with the dark burnt umber color. But first we're just going to dry brush all of our cookies with this caramel color. Here I'm showing you can go darker on the bottom to make it look more realistic. And I go in with my classic caramel and blend it if it's too dark. Now here I'm going to go in with my burnt umber color, and I am hitting up with my little detail brush the chocolate chunks. And I'm not too worried if it gets onto the cookie because it gives it that melty effect. Just watch here what I'm doing. And here I'm just going in and finishing painting all my cookies with the dry brush. And I do the same color on my cinnamon rolls. Tops, bottom, side, side. Hit the whole thing up. Now while my other cookies are drying over here, I'm going in with my burnt umber color on my cinnamon rolls, and I'm getting around that whole crack area to give it dimension. As you can see here, you can do one coat, you can do two coats, but I'm just going on pretty thick around the whole cracking area. Okay, while those are drying, I'm going to show you here something really that you do to these chocolate chip cookies that make them more realistic. I like to go in on certain parts of where the deep cracks are and hit up with my burnt umber chocolate color. Okie dokie, now I'm getting ready to go in back to my cinnamon rolls, and I'm going to make them look more real. So here I go with my gloss Mod Podge, and I'm going to take my flat brush and some cinnamon, and I like to go in first with the Mod Podge and really put a thick coat on. And then I like to dip my brush into my cinnamon and then cake it on that way. Now you can go in and sprinkle the cinnamon on top, which I show you, like that. But I like to go with my Mod Podge first and then dip it into the cinnamon. I just prefer that method. It makes it like chunkier and it makes it look more real in my opinion. But we're going to go along this whole crack area with this method. And I do it to both of these cinnamon rolls. And common sense should tell you, don't use the cinnamon in your kitchen for actual cooking once you're dipping your brush with Mod Podge and everything. Just common sense. Okie dokie, so now that that was done, I'm going in and coating this whole cinnamon roll with a thick coat of my gloss Mod Podge. And the one I just leave in the gloss Mod Podge, which I really like that look, the more that you cake on of the Mod Podge, the more it looks like it is a clear glaze. Here's a better angle you can see of my chocolate chip cookie, how I went into that deep crack with the dark, how it really looks like it's burnt or melted chocolate. Okay, so I have this spare Hershey Kiss that I'm just going to hot glue on to my one cookie. And if you watch my Valentine DIYs, you'll see how I did that. And here, what I did, I tore a piece of my foam apart to make it look like a broken M&M. I love this method. It looks so realistic once it's done. But you just simply tear it apart. And I'm just going to take some of my little fake M&Ms and hot glue them on. The reason I hot glue them is because it leaves a little, like, it kind of lifts them up, and you'll see with my burnt umber, and it looks like the chocolate's melting out of them, kinda. And based off of real M&Ms, you don't really see that little M on them. So here I just took an eraser, and it's a pretty hard eraser. It's not good quality. And I took and I just sliced off majority of it, and I dip it in my white paint. And I just simply make a 3, and I put 2 dash lines on the ends. Now, realistically, M&Ms, like I said, you can barely even see the white M at the very end. So I take my paper towel and I blot that white off. So here's where I'm going in and coloring with my burnt umber color, the foam pieces that I tore apart, and I'm adding drops of the paint to where I tore it apart. And I'm just kind of caking it on there and not minding if it's not the cleanest, because it looks like it's melting chocolate. And I like to go under my M&Ms too, where I said I like to hot glue them because it kind of lifts them up. And that way I can get my little paintbrush under there and it looks like the melted chocolate. And I like to do the same with the Hershey Kiss too, so it looks like it's melted on there. So, see the cinnamon rolls? How, with that clear glaze? I like them just like that personally. And you can customize these cookies, honestly, however your heart desires. Like this one, I sprinkled cinnamon on. I'm going to show you, you can go in and ice them if you have a caulking mixture. That's what this one is, with the caulking, the paint, and Mod Podge. And I just smooth it down with my popsicle stick. You can change the color with your color of acrylic paint. That easy. You can add fake sprinkles to them. There's so many different methods you can do. I even take and I use this white caulking mixture and I put it on top of one of my cinnamon rolls. I personally prefer to put the white caulking mixture into a bag and put on the cinnamon roll. I'm not digging how that looked, but ones I've made in the past, yes. So here what I'm doing is I'm only going to put the gloss Mod Podge on my M&Ms and my Hershey Kiss, and obviously that's what I used on my cinnamon rolls. But for the rest of the cookies, the bases like this, I'm coating in my matte Mod Podge. And make sure once the tops are good and dry, you flip them over and get the back good. That's going to help seal them in. And these will last you forever if properly sealed, I promise. The sky's the limit with the possibilities that you can make. But here is a good base idea for you if you're new to fake bake and want to bake. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, have a great day.